Welcome back. Today we're talking more about frequently misused words in biomedical writing, and I want to talk about such as versus namely. Such as is used to provide examples of something. Namely is used to name it. That's the key point, to name it. So they're quite different, even though I see authors using them incorrectly. Let me give you an example of such as. Other factors such as nutrient status, primary production, microbial biomass, and coagulation processes. Now, when I say such as, you know this is not everything. There are more. I'm giving you some examples. But when I say namely, I will define it. I will name exactly what it is. Namely, these two items in my second sentence here. These are their names, and there are no others. So you don't need to think it's incomplete. It's complete. It's entire. It's a definition when I say namely. Let me talk about e.g. and i.e. Now, e.g. and i.e. we actually don't like to use very much in our papers because they're kind of misunderstood and they're often wrongly used. Rather than writing e.g. and i.e., I would prefer authors just say such as or namely, because that's what it means. E.g. means such as. I.e. means namely. So if you know what such as and namely mean, you also know what E.g. means. E.g. means example. I.e. means definition. So again, very different in their meaning. Let me give you an example of this error in a paper. Here is a student, and he writes, change in height, e.g. height velocity, may be only reduced in asthmatic children. Now, the problem with e.g. here, e.g. means example, but the author doesn't want to use an example. He wants to define the kind of height. So he shouldn't say e.g., he should say i.e. He's trying to say exactly what kind of height it is. He's trying to name it. Better than e.g., just say namely height velocity. Here's another example of this error. These have been implicated in specific pathological states, e.g. arthritis and cancer. Now, these specific pathological states, these are not examples here, so the author shouldn't use e.g. He wants to define what those specific pathological states are, so he should say i.e. or namely, not e.g. but i.e. Be careful which one you use here. I see students sometimes randomly using these interchangeably, but they really do mean different things. Let me talk about that and which, because this is another commonly misunderstood term that we use in our paper. We use the word that for defining the restrictive clause and which for non-restrictive clause. Now, it's hard to understand what that means without an example. So I'm going to give you an example so you can see what I'm talking about and how this word can change the meaning of our sentence. Take a look at this first sentence here. The samples that showed a change in D2H between precursor and product were analyzed by NMR. Now, when I use the word that, I mean not all samples showed a change. Those that did were submitted for further analysis, but not all of them. So when you say the word that, you mean some of them, not all of them. Now, if you take the same sentence and say the samples which showed a change, now you mean all the samples showed a change and all of them were submitted and analyzed. Okay, not some, but all. So that, some of them, which, all of them. Remember that when you're trying to decide which one to use following your subject or your noun. Among and between, another common mistake that we see in writing. Now, the key point to remember is between is always for two. Two. You hear the word twain or twixt or two in that word, it means two. Now, among means more than two. So, whenever it's two things, say between, but more than two, 3, 4, 5, say among. Let me show you an example of this. The only difference among the precursor molecules and the product molecules. Now, is this correct? No. We only have two things. So we can't say among, we must say between. Between precursor molecules and product molecules. Here's another example. Significant differences were observed in the values between bio, fully, and semi-synthetic epinephrines. Now, can we say between for 3? No. We have to say among bio, fully, and semi. Another quick point, don't say at for days. We see this a lot in medical papers. The key point is at should be used only for a specific time, at 1 o'clock, at 3 o'clock. We use in for month, in the month of June, for example, and we use on for days. That's the proper preposition for days. Basically, maybe this can help. Imagine a big box, okay? And this could be physical or time, all right? A big box, you can be in the box, like in a month or in a car. Then for when you add one line, or let's say you're in Taipei, there's a big area, all right, in Taipei, and then we add one line. We're on Chang'an Shilu. We're at 180 Chang'an Shilu. So whenever you add one line, like a street, it's on, and when you add a second line, it's at. So it's in Taipei, on this street, at this address. We can also say this for time. In the month of June, on the 32nd, at 12 o'clock. Again, when you become more defined, you use a more defined preposition here. So at for time, in for month, and on for a particular day. Here's an error. Graft rejection was observed at days 115 and 125. Do we like this? Are we happy with at for days? No. On days 115 and 125. Significant recovery was observed at day 7, and the patient was discharged at day 12 of admission. Do we like this? We do not. We want to be on day 7, on day 12. We use on for days. Mutant and mutation, another mistake that we sometimes see when we are revising papers. The key point is a mutation is an alteration in the primary sequence of a DNA. So we have a DNA, and now the sequence is changed in some way. That's a mutation. Now, a mutant is for a strain of organism, allele or gene that carries one or more mutations. So a mutant is the whole allele or the whole gene itself. A mutation is an adjustment or a change on the DNA strand itself. Let me give you an example. We characterized 4 yeast mutants. These were changes in the yeast DNA sequence. No, we characterized 4 mutations. Here's another example of an error. This G to T mutant, no, it's a mutation. This isn't the whole gene. This is a sequence or a part of the total gene. So we would say mutation. Mice were homozygous for this mutation allele. A whole allele cannot be a mutation. Only a segment of the allele could have a mutation, so it would be mutant allele here. We mapped the XYZ mutant. No, you map a mutation. That's a particular part of a larger strand or a larger allele. Let me talk about remarkable and marked. You know, the word remarkable means it's great, it's fantastic, 好棒. But when we write our research, we don't really want to say our work is great or fantastic. We usually want to be more modest, and we want to say it was marked. It means we can mark it. It was a 1 and now it's a 2. It was a 3 and now it's a 4. We are marking more objectively. Remarkable is too excited a word for us to use most of the time in our writing, and most of the time I would just recommend authors change the word remarkable to a more modest marked. Here's an example. There was a remarkable increase in binding. Better, there was a marked increase in binding. Let me talk about another word that's often confused, and that's reproductive and reproducible. Let's talk about the difference of meaning here. Reproductive refers to the biological process in which organisms have babies or have offspring. It cannot be used for results that can be repeated. Results that can be repeated are reproducible. They can be duplicated. We can do it again. So research can be reproducible. Research cannot be reproductive. Only animals and organisms can be reproductive. Let's give an example here. The results were reproductive in all 3 experiments. No, they were reproducible in all 3 experiments. Another one, upon. Upon always means on. So every time you have upon, just change to on. It's the more common use of that word. Well, thank you for joining us today. For more information, please visit our blog, editing.tw/blog. We have a lot of articles on how authors can publish more in international journals, and you can read about it on our blog. We also provide editing and translation help for scholars preparing their work for publication, and you can upload your paper at our site, editing.tw. Thank you for joining us. Bye.